in the year 2025, I think there'll be cars that use sensors to drive without crashing or driving off the road.
Well, I'd like to see robots that go underwater and pick up rubbish, and they detect where the rubbish is, and then they've got robotic hands that pick it up and puts it in their own bin inside them.
Well, I think it will hold hover ships that use air to move around, and it will be good because then you can go over water and land.
In the year 2025, I think there's going to be things like fridges that you type in what you want and it like cooks it or cools it or warms it up and it comes out, sort of out of the fridge.
What sort of things?
Like apples and chocolate bars, things like that.
My desk is called an iDesk and it's touchscreen, so you don't have to write in books, because writing books might, like, the children in year 2025 might think, oh, this is too boring, look at all the other technology that we're using, why can't we learn this way? And so I thought, touchscreen, that would be cool. And you bring up applications by touching on the icons for reading, and we've got things like iTunes and Google in there too.
In the year 2025, I reckon there'll be nuclear-powered power sources and nuclear hover machines that will be a quicker way to travel.
Looking forward to 2025, some of the energy options that might be available to you could be installing photovoltaic arrays. There's one behind me, and that powers our house. And in Taranaki, there's probably 20 houses that are powered by sunlight at the moment. I think that's going to be exponential. I would suggest in 2025, it could be 2,000 homes in Taranaki.
Well, the entire west coast of New Zealand has a wave energy resource, and if you look at it, it's the greatest down in the south of New Zealand, just to the west of Stewart Island, but all the way up the west coast of the South Island and most of the west coast of the North Island has a viable wave energy resource. And Taranaki's the same as that. We've got between 30 and 35 kilowatts per lineal metre of coastline has a resource available to it.
The role of oil and gas will still be a significant one. The predictions are that through population growth and economic development, energy demand will continue to grow. In fact, predictions are that it may double by 2050. So we'll still be driving cars, we'll still be turning on our heaters, and we'll still be using our computers. New energy types take about 25 years to capture the market. If you look at biofuels, for instance, at the moment, it's only just capturing about 1% of the market today, and it's taken 25 years, so oil and gas will still be around.
What determines whether something's going to happen or not is often economics. At the moment, the economics around photovoltaics are not that great, but once the oil price starts to go up again, and as the production costs of photovoltaic panels fall, it's not going to be long before we meet the crossover point.
It's difficult to get energy out of waves in the ocean because, it's just the nature of the environment, and also wave energy is quite episodic. You have a storm, a lot of energy concentrated into a couple of days, and then, it decreases, and you've got a case like this. There's not a lot of energy out there here today. So it's very episodic, and so in terms of planning for your energy supplies, it's a little bit like wind in another example, because you've got to make use of it when it comes. And in fact, because they're so energetic, these storms, you can't actually use all of that energy. So while we might say we've got 30 kilowatts available to us here per metre, we can't actually access all of that energy at once anyway.
We can't expect to reduce our reliance on oil and gas altogether in Taranaki. I think we are very lucky in Taranaki, though, is that we are a gas-producing province, and gas is the cleanest fossil fuel. And it's still abundant, despite what people think. It's abundant in Taranaki. It's affordable and it's acceptable. So it provides a very nice, logical bridge to a more renewable energy future.
Gas isn't going to disappear overnight, but I think we will come to value its other uses. For instance, you always want gas for your portable barbecue. You'll always want gas for large industrial heating loads, gas for making methanol so we can make plastics. There's lots of other uses for gas, so I think the days of a single use where we burn it and it's gone are diminishing rapidly. The days of multiple uses where we turn it into plastic, the plastic makes a bottle, the bottle gets recycled, that recycled bottle makes some clothing, that clothing at the end of life goes to make insulation for a house. We'll see more and more of those uses because that's a much higher value use, and it extends the life of that product and gives us time to change, because what's needed at the moment is time to change. We've become addicted to fossil fuel energy, and rightly so. It's been phenomenal for us, and now we have to wean ourselves off that.
It's fair to say that we don't have all the answers. We do believe, however, that we're part of the solution, particularly around partnerships, but also around technology and around natural gas.
Our wealth looking ahead, key issues I think for the region are what happens in terms of the energy industry. We are the energy province of New Zealand, so future discoveries could have a significant impact for our region.
It's been oil and gas here for a long time, since back in the 60s, and I think it'll continue on in the future. We've got a lot of other medium-sized firms that are associated with the oil and gas and engineering, and I'm sure those firms will continue to add wealth to the Taranaki.
How important is farming to our future economy? Well, the world's going to need food, and I think we're predicting about another 2 billion people in the next 40 or 50 years, and we are a food bowl down here in Taranaki and in New Zealand, and hugely important to the economy.
New Zealand doesn't have the population to eat all its food resources, therefore it has to find a way of exporting those food resources. And the best way to do that is in proteins in milk powder, cheese, or frozen meat, and in wool.
Looking ahead, the things which could be real game changers for us include what occurs in the energy industry, what happens, for example, in terms of transport, and particularly our links trans-Tasman. For example, at the moment, Taranaki, we're the closest hub to Australia. So what if we had an export corridor which, instead of going up to Auckland and through that congested route, zipped across here to Taranaki and went straight across the Tasman? That would be significant for our region.
I'd be a happy man if in 15 years' time we had a trans-Tasman link, a steady daily connection with Australia that saw the lower half of the North Island's cargo going to Australia and back, and also an inter-island link, so Nelson, New Plymouth linked up so that you could roll onto here, onto a inter-island ferry, and you're in the South Island exiting at Nelson with your camper van or your cargo, your truck it might be. And so that's the potential that's there. That interconnectivity is vital for us. We're the only port in New Zealand facing Australia.
The things we're looking at the most at the moment are really the environmental pressures. We've got to make sure that we keep our rivers and streams really clean.
The average farm in Taranaki on the Ring Plain has something like 6 kilometres of stream bank to look after. Every farm. We have more stream banks in Taranaki than there is coastline in New Zealand.
Water's becoming a very, very precious commodity, more so than ever. So, you know, we're fencing off streams, we're making sure that we're limiting the use of nitrogen so that it's, you know, we're not overstocking so it's not going in the water. Those sorts of things, that's where the pressures are going to come on. And we're doing research around climate change to try and work out how cows develop methane in their rumen, so we can find ways of perhaps hopefully mitigating that in the future as well.
In the 1980s, we dealt with organic wastes, raw cow shed effluent and things like that. 1990s, early 2000s, we were dealing with nutrients and the fact that our levels of nitrogen and phosphorus coming off our farmland primarily were increasing. And I'd like to think that by 2025, the huge investment that's been put in by our farmers in terms of fencing off stream banks and in terms of planting our stream banks to intercept nutrients that might flow off our paddocks is really coming to fruition.
In 2025, the ideal farm, what I see, will be a farmer taking a lot more care of their environment and taking more interest in what's happening around them. He have his farm probably fully planted out in riparian plants along the streams. Water quality will change. Systems will probably be quite different as new technologies come along and he introduces those into his farming system. But overall, he'll be there still producing milk for the Fonterra or whatever company is operating at that time to export overseas, creating income for New Zealanders.
I think visually, looking at a farm, you'll probably see exactly what we're looking at today. We'll have cows and we'll have grass. I mean, that's really our clear advantage here, is that New Zealand cows eat pasture. I think what we'll find is if we can actually breed a more efficient cow and that our pastures perhaps are more sustainable through drought and things like that. So there'll be, breeding going on in both of those areas. But I think what you see will probably be very largely similar to what you see today, and it's the legacy that we're all going to leave for our children and our grandchildren, because it's where we've come from.
Our future is not going to be a lot different to what we see on the roads today. Apart from the makeup of the fleet, you'll have more electric cars and hybrid cars, but the general vehicles that you see petrol driven will stay the same. The makeup of the fleet, unless through major change, environmental, legislative, is not going to change. It'll stay the same.
We will be prepared to compromise. At the moment, a lot of families have 2 cars. One's a smaller car, the other one's a larger car for maybe going on holiday and towing the boat. I think in the next 10 years, we'll see that smaller car becoming electric.
In fact, it will happen. It's just a matter of time. I've actually built and converted my own car to electricity 2 years ago, and I know from experience now that it's a piece of cake. They're simple. There's just nothing to go wrong. They're clean, and most importantly, they're much cheaper than driving a petrol or diesel-powered vehicle. Okay, we're just going to do a very, very light test run using this really poor 12-volt battery. One of the cells isn't working, so it's only about 10 volts. Just going to actually see if it's moving. We've got the car in neutral, so let's connect the battery up and see if anything happens. Are you ready? Oh shit, we got action.
Oh wow.
Fantastic! It's alive! Owning an electric car is just like owning a gas car, except you bypass the gas stations. When you get home at night, plug your car in, that's it, you forget about it. Now we have the car plugged in and charging off this protected socket, so there is no risk of electrocution. So it is all very safe now. Here we are, taking the electric car up to the city. Who wants to pay for gas? Bollocks to that. We did notice a power bill go up, yeah. It went up about $40 approximately a month, but that's gave us about 500 or so Ks of city-only driving, which is pretty good. And we had pretty heavy feet too, because, hey, you've got all that electric power, you may as well put your foot down. Okay, it's a bit difficult to do this with a camera in the hand, but here we go. Hopefully this will dispel the myth once and for all that electric cars are slow. On your marks, get set, go. I reckon in 2025 we'll have a lot more quieter streets. It'd be nice to pull away from the lights and not be shrouded in a cloud of diesel smoke or petrol fumes. But that's only going to happen if people start going out and actively buying electric cars.
Once the electric car becomes available, if the whole of New Zealand can transfer over within the lifetime of a vehicle, so typically 10 to 15 years, that would be a sensible time frame in which to do it.
The main consequence of using electric vehicles, or the increased uptake of electric vehicles, is our ability to generate enough power to handle the increase. I believe our current hydro and geothermal power will have to increase substantially, and we may also have to talk about the idea that no one wants to talk about, nuclear power.
The year 2025, we certainly will be thinking differently about how we travel. I think we'll be thinking about how we travel, and that may be the first point of difference. I think right now we're probably not thinking too much about it, but as the economics of our travel become more of a factor, as the environmental choices, the environmental impacts of our choices become a greater factor, and we certainly will be thinking a lot more about how we travel.
Yeah, I love riding to work because it's a real sense of freedom for me. It's you've got so much flexibility. You can turn a corner, go left, go right. I can come on the walkway. I haven't got a big beast of a car to drive, and that's a great feeling for me.
I think as technology advances, for sure, we will see some great, cleaner, more efficient electric and other new technology vehicles, but all that is still going to come at a price. We can't build enough roads, we can't have enough car parks, and the environment, atmosphere probably couldn't hack it. Not to mention, obviously the fossil fuels are finite, so we really need to be looking at better managing the demand that we have for travel.
What we should change from now to 2025 to make our community more of a bike-friendly community is I'd love to see arterial cycleways from our walkway going up into the suburbs. I'd love to see a lot less glass on the roads. I'd love to see drivers who are at least giving us a time of day on the road and not just seeing it as something they've got to pass in a hurry. I'd like to see a town which is embracing the use of bikes, so we've got good parking areas, lock-up areas for bicycles. That would be my main area.
In the morning, the year 2025, I imagine our streets will be a lot less traffic dense. I think the speeds will be a lot slower. There'll be people making a more varied choice in their transport, i.e. walking, cycling, taking public transport. I think there'll be a lot more active transport getting to and from work. New Plymouth and Taranaki, people see themselves as being an active population, and I think that'll be better reflected in the way that the people choose their transport in the future.
I like to see more cyclists on the road, because the more cyclists we have on the road, the more the driver's going to be used to seeing us, the more they're going to be courteous. It's going to create a culture of, hey, we can work both together on the road.
The infrastructure as it stands is fantastic for walking, cycling and driving in cars. Unfortunately, people are electing at this point in time just to jump in their car. They don't even think. They leave the house in the morning, grab the keys, off they go. Maybe in the future I just think that we're just not going to have that capacity to be able to do that.
The future climate will change. It is changing. The world is warming up, and that is going to lead to sea level rise. And the reason for that is that as the world warms, as the atmosphere warms, the sea is getting warmer, and so it is expanding a little bit, and that causes the sea level to rise. We also have ice melting off the Greenland ice sheet and Antarctica. Mainly, and that's contributing to sea level rise. So we know that sea level is rising, but we don't know how fast it will rise or how fast it will accelerate and how much it will rise. But the best science that we have available suggests that it's going to be between about 0.5 metre and 1 metre by the end of this century. So that's in the year 2100. But the possibility exists that it could actually go higher than that. there's no need to panic about climate change and sea level rise. It's not going to cause sudden catastrophic changes in the processes that we see happening at the coast. Those processes are going to continue as pretty much as they always have done. But what we will see is that as the sea level rises, the processes that are occurring, the tides, waves and so on, will ride on the back of that sea level rise. So we will start to see more frequent flooding occurrences, more frequent incidences of waves being able to run in closer to the shoreline. So that'll affect mainly low-lying areas around the Taranaki coastline. Most of your high cliffed areas won't be too much of a problem, but it will happen gradually and we've got time to adapt. And so this is why it's really important that we start looking at our human responses to coastal processes and climate change, rather than trying to mitigate or stop the sea, because it's simply just impossible. When you go down to Back Beach, for example, and you see that in the last few months the beach has become eroded and cut away, perhaps the sand's moved offshore a little bit and the cliffs are exposed, that's just part of the natural cut and fill cycle that goes on at the beach. And what happens is that, particularly during the winter, we get more southerly storms and larger waves from the southwest. They will cut away the beach sands and basically shift it offshore. Now that's part of the beach adjusting to the energy that's arriving, and it's pulling sand offshore so that to make it shallower and break the waves earlier, and so dissipate that energy. So that's the coast acting as a natural buffer. Now when summer rolls around and the conditions are less energetic and you get sort of lower, longer swells, they will actually push that sand back on the beach again, and you will get your beach will recover. And sometimes we can get these cycles actually happen on longer periods due to the El Nino, La Nina weather systems, and also something called the Interdecadal Pacific Oscillation, which is about a 20 to 30 year cycle. So, and El Nino, La Nina tends to operate on a 2 to 5 year cycle. So you might have a period of 2 to 5 years where your beach is looking a little bit scarce of sand, but then in the next 2 to 5 years it could look quite healthy.
I'm Pat Greenfield. I've been documenting the Tongaparautu coastline for the past 10 years. And in that time, I've basically been documenting loss. And in the past few years, that loss seems to be accelerating. Tongaparautu is a bit different to a lot of coasts, as the cliffs are composed of soft sandstone and mudstone, so they are naturally prone to destruction by the waves, and the Tasman Sea is a highly energetic sea. But because the sea level is actually rising at the rate of at least 4 centimetres a year, it's increasing the destruction zone, so the waves can hit higher up the cliffs that were previously out of reach. So bigger areas are now subject to erosion. Yeah, what's happening here and what basically happens to the cliffs is you get the waves and they smash into the cliffs and you get this initial carving action. But because at the bases the cliffs are solid, there's no give, then the shock waves, that travels up to the top and the cliffs can actually wobble at the top and that loosens up the soil. So then when it rains, then you get what we call a top-down collapse. Yes, sand dunes are the equivalent of the coal miners' canaries. When the sea levels rise, then they are the first to be destroyed. And this is what you're seeing firsthand here. Now, if the sea level falls, then they are the first to benefit. So these are really true indicators of sea level rise, as opposed to, big waves smashing up cliffs or any other things. This is inescapable. The message I would give children, I think, is to get your parents to be more on board with the environment and your future. After all, you are the ones who are going to live it. They're not. So you need to get them to be more aware of their responsibilities.
I want the future to be sweet smelling, and I want there to be peace in the world for once, and no violence, no smoking, no pollution. I want smoking out of the picture and pollution out of the picture. I want it all eco-friendly and just a very nice world to be living in.
I want the world to have sort of no pollution, and I want it to sort of be an eco-friendly place.
A future that I would like, it would all be green, so there would be no pollution, anything like that, and peace, so no wars, and we all get along very well.
Well, I want it to be healthy and clean and sort of organised and less accidents and deaths.
I'd like the world to be a cleaner place where there's no pollution, the water level's not rising, and stuff that's not bad.